To your mind, what is the job of the sheriff?
Oh man, that's really evolved over 8 years actually since I've been in here. The job of the sheriff is number one to be the voice and also the contact for the community when there's issues in regards to safety, security, but also for jail inmates, for emergencies out in the community, for funding, reimbursements for the towns and villages, along with ambulance service in regards to contracts and level of service. And I guess the last is through our communication center that is your lifeline to help. So I mean, the sheriff has to actually manage the five divisions so that they work together and keep the community safe.
What are your qualifications for sheriff?
Okay, I've been in law enforcement for 30 years, 28 here at Portage County. For the last 8 years, I've been sheriff. Prior to that, 12 years, I was a supervisor. When I talk about a supervisor, I was a supervisor in many different areas through the county. I was in the detective bureau as a sergeant. Then I went to the court services, which we headed up, and worked with the judges and the staff up there to get the court security. Then I came back and I was actually the safety school sergeant, along with a training sergeant for the sheriff's office. I've done a lot of leadership throughout Portage County since day one. Right after I got hired, I put in for the special response team, was on the special response team, started as a entry team member, worked my way up to a sniper, then to a team leader, then to the commander. Then I was also a field training officer right away, training new officers that came on to be the best they could be for Portage County. I've been a firearms instructor. I started with that right away as when I was hired. I think it was a year after I got hired, and then I worked myself up to actually running the firearms program and running the budget for the firearms program. Then I went to the court security. Court security was a challenge because it was a new division, was new in regards to supervision. So we had a division of 5, supervised the courts, supervised the trip guys, supervised the school safety officer, coordinated all the trips and inmates being brought back and forth to court. And so that was a challenge, and it actually really worked out for me to learn a different division in regards to that. Then becoming sheriff, it was a learning curve because there's a lot that I thought I knew that I didn't know in regards to from the building to the jail to the admin, communications, emergency management, emergency operations. When you look at this, and after my first year when they wanted to put in emergency management and emergency medical services, I was scared, honestly, because that's 2 new divisions. A lot more in the budget, a lot more staff, and I thought maybe it was going to be too much on my shoulders, but I'm glad I took that on. I think we've done very well in regards to the divisions coming under the sheriff's office and under our direction, and it's added a lot of resources for our staff and for Portage County to be able to utilize those 2 new divisions. But being a sheriff, when you're looking at it and you're just doing firearms and you're doing SRT and SWAT and things like this, you think you got a good handle on the sheriff's office. But when I became sheriff and had to deal with $16 million budget and had to say no and make those hard decisions, I realized that I don't make everybody happy. I've worked very hard. I love this community, and when you make the decisions and you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I did the best for this office and for the citizens, I think that's what I've done for the last 8 years.
You mentioned a learning curve. Ballpark, how long period of time you think that learning curve is for the sheriff's office?
It was about 2 years. I'm not gonna lie. I feel that 2 years was going through the leadership courses, National Sheriff's Academies, the leadership trainings that I went through, scheduled through the first year. And then actually sitting down, and I had the best advice from a mentor that said, your first year, don't make any big decisions. Listen to what people have to say, write it down, implement your new decisions in your second year, and do things like that. And I listened to that, but it was actually a little bit slower than that because I had more of a learning curve, and I'm not gonna lie about it, because at that point, 9 years ago, that was when it was big talk about the jail space needs and everything like that. And for that first year, I mean, we had consultants and companies coming in regards to, I thought for sure I could remodel this. I thought it would be cost effective, fiscally responsible for the citizens. And when I went through that for that whole year, in regards to having all these companies and getting the bids and figuring this out, I'm like, I was way off base. And I openly admit it. I told people that, and I'm getting slammed for that, saying, oh, I changed course. No, I didn't change course. I'm making a fiscally responsible decision in regards to what happened back then compared to what I didn't know. And I didn't know that. So I researched it, had the people come in, and I feel very confident in my decisions now when I'm making forward in regards to space needs, fiscally be responsible, budgets, staffing, and items like that.
Okay. What prompted you to run for the office of sheriff? And this is a two-part question.
Sure.
Should it be partisan?
No, it shouldn't be partisan. I'll answer the first one right away. So you're aware, I got voted on by the 72 sheriffs to be on the board of directors for the Badger Sheriffs. I've pushed very hard to make this nonpartisan. I think that it's ridiculous that it is partisan, because I'm a sheriff for all. Constitutional officer, sheriff for all. Doesn't matter if you're independent, Democrat, Republican. But it is partisan, which again, the reason why it is because some of the bigger counties throughout the state do not want to change, and because there's a lot of money that funnels into those partisan races. Mm-hmm. Doesn't funnel in here. I'm just telling you. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So yes, it should not be partisan. I 100% agree with that. It shouldn't be. And the first part of that.
What prompted you to run again?
Well, I have a lot of projects that are in the mix. I seriously thought about this. 8 years, it's been great. 30 years in law enforcement, but 4 more years, I think I can accomplish some major milestones that I set as my goals. In the last 2 years, my major milestone was getting our guys the whole department, body cameras and in-car cameras. And through a process of going, I wrote a community foundation through Onkine's federal grant, and just yesterday actually was finally finalized. So I'm actually sending the resolutions up to the county board so that we can get this going. But the problem is implementation is going to be into 23, might even be part of 24 because of things being so back ordered. And then the space needs. I mean, the space needs to me is huge, and I've taken this on. I've taken this challenge. I am the only one here in the sheriff's office that's been through 2 or 3 different firms that have come in, done space needs, talked about the dollars, talked about everything that's going on, and I'm the only one knowledgeable. And if we lose that, we're going to start at ground zero again. And I'm really worried about that, because then it's going to stop. And people have to understand that I've been a sheriff for second chances. That is my motto in regards to home monitoring and getting those positions and making sure that people are productive out in society. But when we don't have space to do it and we're shipping people out of the county, they don't have those opportunities. So then we have the reentry programs going on, but it doesn't affect them because they're not getting these programs. So we need to have this well balanced for all the inmates, not just for the ones that stay here in Portage County. And if you look at average daily population from Portage County to the other counties, we are very low. I mean, our average daily population here, during our peak times was like 140 at the maximum daily population. Where other counties are 350 surrounding counties or more. So I mean, we're doing a lot. I mean, our diversion programs and things are incredible. I mean, we are like a model for surrounding counties, but we can do better in regards to that with people here that are incarcerated to get these programs going.
Since you brought it up,
yeah,
the diversion programs and home monitoring, things like that,
mm-hmm.
How do you, for people who don't know, how do you choose which offenders would be appropriate for those types of programs?
Well, there's a risk assessment tool that we use in regards to testing. So my home monitoring people, we have a staff and a half for that. And that was, since I've been elected, we got the full-time and the half staff. For the home monitoring, and we average about, I think it was 14 to 16 out on home monitoring right now during the COVID times. Will increase guaranteed after the COVID because with the population. But anybody that has a job and somewhere to stay and that passes the risk assessment, we'll be putting out. And that's how we've been doing ever since the COVID. it's worked out really good. We've had very few failures, and the failures that we have are because we put them on a sober link, which is they have to blow into a unit also too if it's an alcohol offense, or a drug testing that they can come in once in a while. But very rarely have we had failures. I mean, we have people that are staying productive out there, keeping their jobs, keeping their families, and able to keep productive.
Why run on the Democratic ticket, and can you define what it means to be a Democrat?
Well, I will say my parents growing up were Democrats. I was actually graduated and was a teacher. So, I mean, I'm pro-union. There's a difference in regards to, I feel, from Republicans and Democrats now, from Democrats and Republicans when I was in high school. I'll be honest, growing up, I see it's really gone extreme far right or extreme far left. There is no more of what I call myself, the middle person that does what's right. I don't feel that you're defined by who you are, but that is what's going on lately. If you say, "Oh, I'm a Democrat," you're defined as this. You're defined as, from abortion to whatever. I have my principles in life. I have my faith, my value, and that's how I define it to myself as what's doing right. I'm pro-union, lean a little bit towards that way, and so that's why I run in the Democratic Party.
Okay. You've already touched on this, but since we also asked the other candidate, what are the top improvements that need to be made at Portage County Sheriff's Office as a department?
What needs to be made? Well, first, the staffing issue in our communication center, that is a big thing that I'm working on right now. I've got a psychologist evaluating in regards to problems that we're having in there, why we're not retaining, why we're having people leave in short times. And so I'm working, just hired, and they're in the evaluation process right now. Other counties have done it because communication centers throughout the state of Wisconsin are drastically having problems. So we're being very proactive to try to evaluate that and see what we can do to improve that. And hopefully, 6 months, like in some of the other counties, we have a drastic improvement. The space needs are an ongoing thing, but it's come to a head. We've said this every election, every sheriff I've heard talk about this. But in all honesty, when you walk into our building and the plumbing isn't working, the heating isn't working, we can't get locks for our cell doors because it's archaic. We have a linear system that's not staff friendly. So, I mean, if we go to a different style of jail, we'll actually save in regards to our staffing. So, I mean, there's a lot of things in regards to the staff and then plus the staffing for the communication. I want to just step back. Sorry to run back on that, but the 24-hour supervision. Right now, we don't have, per se, 24-hour supervision because once the supervision for after days at like 5 or 6 o'clock, our road lieutenants and sergeants supervise the communication center. I got the approval this last year to get one, so we have a rotating, but if somebody takes a vacation or whatever, we have an issue. So I'm still putting in the process of getting the fourth, so those would work the same schedule, 7 on, 7 off, and we wouldn't have a lapse in any kind of supervision coverage. And it's very imperative. I think that's part of some of the issues in regards to the communication centers. When you don't have somebody in there that's the supervisor, things, when they got to call the road officer to come in, it can add to the problems instead of having somebody take care of the problem right away. So, those are the three things. And of course, we've upgraded all the, dispatch in regards to the new next gen 911 and text 911. So, I mean, the communication center is top of the line right now in regards to our equipment and capabilities. So I'm excited about that.
How do you differ from your opponent?
Well, there's quite a bit, and I don't ever like to, I guess, not be nasty or things, but I mean, there's a drastic difference between my opponent and myself in regards to leadership, experience, years of service, the staff support, things like that. And when you look at it, I give him credit for running, but the problem is that when you preach about community involvement like I do, and I've been involved for 30 years, 28 here in Portage County, in all kinds of things from day one. He has not been involved in any of these. So when you talk about towns, villages, committee, county board, our public safety, when somebody hasn't been to one of those meetings to understand the processes, that's very concerning. When you haven't been to, you've been to maybe some of these events that you say you volunteer for, but you bring your family and don't volunteer, you actually go to them, that's concerning to me. When we just had police lights at Christmas, and we have, officers down there that are volunteering their time, and that person doesn't, that to me, the people pay my salary. And for 8 years, and prior to that, for 8 years, really, my schedule's open. If somebody wants to ever come and look at it, you can see the days that I do. And in regards to what I volunteer for, the meetings I attend, because I feel very important that I'm knowledgeable of what I'm talking about. Not an expert. I have experts here. I have great staff that tell me, what's going on and what I can do better and things like that. But I also feel that if you as a news reporter come in and ask me a question and I'm always saying, well, I'll have to get back to you, or I'm going to have to get back to you, that's pretty disheartening for the sheriff not to know what's going on in his department. So when people say, oh, you have to read these letters and they say, oh, he's micromanaging. No, I'm not micromanaging. I'm giving enough information so that I can actually speak about what's going on and understand it, and then I can pass you on to the experts.
You've already touched on this a bit as well, but since we asked your opponent the same question, what are your priorities for the 5 divisions specifically, or more importantly, the jail?
Sure. Well, first, for my operations division, I have my community officers, and I'm very excited about the county board, getting and funding these community officers, because it's been a great addition to the sheriff's office for operations. Just for example, we contract now with the highway department in regards to construction zones, and it's made a drastic improvement. So I'm just trying to find where I had my little stat sheet, because I had one thing I wanted to talk to you about. I believe it was 94 stops in 2 months we've had, 36 citations and 60 warnings. Our fastest citation was over 120 miles an hour through a construction zone. And these are the people that are fixing our roads and are making it so we can travel possible. And I'm very excited because I think the highway, I've talked to numerous of the highway department workers, and they're very excited because we're taking this very serious now. The last couple of years we've got equipment, we've got cars, we've got people hurt. We need to take that. So our community officers are out there. They're in the communities doing the coffee with a cop with me, finding out the pulse of what's going on, because I never had that opportunity. The guys are running from call to call in regards to our operations division, and don't have the opportunity like our community guys do to actually see, what do we need? Where do we need the speed board? Where can we do better? Or if there's an officer that maybe isn't being the nicest to somebody, it gets back to me so I can talk to them and say, hey, let's deal with people accordingly. So my operations division, yes, I agree that I put in for 2 officers every year. I got 2 in the last 8. I would love to get school resource officers in every building. I was a school safety officer. I know how important it is. We have 3 outlying high schools. We have Amherst, Rothschild, and Allman. We do school programs in every one of those schools, and we're going to continue because that's very important to me in regards to being proactive in the elementaries and the schools. So we are going to do that, and if I can partner up with the schools to get funding, but realistically, I said it in the forum the last time. When you're talking 150 plus for an officer, the county board members that were in that room rolled their eyes at me like, there's no way. And if I can come up with funding, that's great. But the other comment in that forum is, well, the businesses should step up. Wow, I thought that was terrible, because our businesses here in Portage County pay taxes, and you look at the donations that they've given to the sheriff's office, now you're asking them for more for staffing, which is, you remember, this is a reoccurring cost every year. This isn't a one-time deal. So, this is something that's added on to the $18 million budget next year that you're going to have to recurring every year with wages and benefits and raises. So that's concerning to me. But the operations division, I will push very hard in regards to that, and really work extremely well with. I work really well with the businesses in regards to being proactive for when something bad is going to happen. That run, hide, fight, the presentations for neighborhood watches, these things are something that I wouldn't say went away, but we really increased over the last couple of years because there's been some terrible things happen throughout this country, and for us to be blind-eyed and say it's not going to happen here, I think is being a fool. So we have to prepare for the worst, and that's why we started the rescue task force. We started all these things, and after that Ben Franklin incident, with the city of Stevens Point and Pulver, I mean, boy, we really crunched some time in regards to what did we do good, what did we do bad. The reunification, as on that day was terrible. I mean, we got to work on that, and that's what we've done. But I mean, the response was outstanding. So I mean, I'm excited about that. Skipping to the jail. The jail, number one, we need to figure out what we're going to do. I mean, we can't keep passing the buck in regards to, are we going to build something? Are we going to remodel? Because once I do a remodel in that jail, it's going to bring me up to I have to do a major remodel, and it's going to bring the DOC 350, the code up, which is going to reduce my jail size if I do any major remodel in there. So that's why I've been waiting for any major remodel, from drains to new doors to Sally Port, where the jail van comes in and things like this, changing. Because once I make a major renovation to any wall, they're going to hold me to the major codes, which we are in violation of, but we are exempt because it was under an old facility. So from a 79-bed jail, we'd probably bring it down in the 60s, which then we'd be shipping, way more people out of county. And right now we ship to, several different counties. We have contract in Wapaka County, and I'd really like to lose that contract and have people all stay here. Staffing wise, I'm holding off on the staff for our corrections, because if we go to a pod style system, I think we'd actually maintain the staff that we have. We wouldn't have to increase for, even if we went to a 200-bed jail. And understand that if there's an increase in jail beds, it's because there's classification that we cannot do in our jail right now. And when I talk about classification, if you have a family member in there, it should concern you, because a classification means that I could have somebody that murdered somebody, and you could have somebody that's in there for a revocation on their driver's license being in that same cell unit, because we can't separate in regards to our jail right now. We do the best we can, but when we are full, we have no options. We can't be moving people all the time in regards to that. So classifications is a big thing. Programs are a big thing. During my tenure, mental health has been huge. I got the full-time jail nurse, full-time social workers in the jail. They're able to monitor, set up programs, set up meetings with a psychologist. So I mean, that is a huge thing. Also, mental health was brought up in the forum before. That was huge for me 8 years ago. I got everybody in this department crisis intervention training and crisis intervention partner training, 7 or 3-day training for all staff. That's been my priority, and that will continue to be my priority. Every new hire, we wait till the next class comes up, and we just got NAMI to fund $5,000 in regards to for our travel and our training again, and we are. That is one of my biggest things in regards to mental health. We're not psychologists, we're not social workers, we will never be, but this gives us a leg up in regards to that.
For clarity,
yeah,
every member of this department is CIT trained.
Is or in the process. It's the only ones that did not go through the CIT. I think the 5-day training was the management, my management personnel. But the jail, corrections, and dispatch go through.
Why hasn't management gone through?
Just because funding. It was basically funding, and I wanted the first guys that are out there dealing with people in mental illness or in a crisis situation to be able to deal with that, because we're not the first ones out there. So I wanted to make sure that they actually had that training. So when a new hire comes in, part of the field training for all is that they get set up for their training on that.
Even COs?
COs, yeah, all COs. Dispatch goes through the CIT or CIP, and the road CIT. It's the 5-day training for the corrections and road, and then the 3-day training for our dispatchers.
Okay. if there is a future executive order from the governor relating to masks or shutdowns, similar or worse than what we saw with COVID, please explain how this department works on that and what, if anything, they can do to enforce it.
Well, first of all, there couldn't be another order for the COVID-19 because the governor had one legal order that was issued. So, I mean, if it was an executive order for another pandemic, I said then that 30 days would be a legal order. After that, DHS has some authority, but they can enforce. We don't enforce. So, you know, when this whole pandemic came out, yeah, I was scared. I think everybody was. I mean, I went through cancer. I wanted to make sure I was safe. I wanted to make sure my staff was safe. I mean, I dealt with a continuing operation plan that I had to come up with and also emergency schedules. Last thing I wanted to do was come up with the emergency schedules and cancel people's vacations and time off. So yeah, I mean, I was pretty strict during the first 6 months of the COVID in regards to Portage County had a policy. But out to the public, this was in the building, the public, after the days, I wrote the letter that stated, you know, that is not a law enforcement function. I mean, we went through a civil unrest where, you know, people hated law enforcement, and now you wanted people to be mass police. And I said, that's not going to happen. There's a different avenue for that. And DHS, the health services, can definitely do those options in regards to, you know, the masking. Now, I mean, it's like any business. If a business asks and they want somebody to wear a mask in their business, that's their private business. Just like no shoes, no shooting, or service. I mean, so if they call us and said somebody was in there not wearing a mask and they won't leave, that would be, you know, they're trespassing. So we would get them out. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's not the mask that we'd be, you know, arresting them on.
So for that first 30 days, if there were another pandemic declaration and an executive order that was issued, those first 30 days...
That would be the only legal order that would be... And again, we, being on the Badger Sheriff's board, I mean, we brought it right to the attorneys right away. We wanted to make sure that we were, you know, right, that we wanted to make sure that the order was constitutional and it was, you know, justified. And that was the only order that was. That's the first one.
So if during that 30-day period, if we have another one that happens and I'm not wearing a mask, I'm violating that order, I can be arrested, I can be cited. What does...
It was always just a forfeiture. I mean, in regards to the first 30 days, I think it was and don't quote me on this, I thought it was like $100 fine that somebody could have got if they were not wearing a mask, but it was not. I mean, at the time, the first pandemic, the first 30 days, people were pretty scared. Mm-hmm. And, you know, abided by it. I don't know how it would go again, to be honest with you, after how this all went about, because I you know, people right now want to move on with their lives, and I don't think would ever put a mask back on again for anything. But, you know, and I don't know. But we are prepared. I mean, we are prepared. I am very prepared for if something happens in this county in regards to a pandemic or, you know, an endemic, and we have to do, you know, continuing operation plans. I have that set. I have the emergency schedules figured out how it would work great for our department, our office, I mean. And so, I mean, those are things that really, you know, push me to be prepared for the future.
Do you think it's a hindrance having the sheriff's headquarters downtown? You have to go through all these residential areas to get to outer parts of the county.
It's not a hindrance. I think that, you know, I worked very hard when I first got elected to make substations out in the county. So, I mean, the towns and villages, our officers can be out there. They have the codes to go in, to bring their computers in, do their reports, you know, and have minimal amount of time coming back into the sheriff's office.
In municipal buildings.
Correct.
In these
municipal buildings, you have the towns and village halls out in the county. And so we have Knox boxes on there, and officers can get in and do those. And they actually, you know, I encourage the citizens out there when they see those squads there to stop in and say hi. So we do that, you know, they're out there quite a bit. In regards to emergency response from downtown, yeah, I'm going to tell you. I said there's 2 access points, you know, that go to the north, go to the east, west, and south. And when we're doing this, you know, if they get bottlenecked, it can be not only dangerous for my officers, but dangerous for the citizens. So that's the concerning part. For me, being centrally hub, it works out good for the sheriff because I have more people, that I'm dealing with all the time that are right down in Stevens Point. But in regards to law enforcement coming in and transporting inmates and getting in and out of town, it can be cumbersome.
And that kind of ties into my next question. What is the job of the sheriff's office as it relates to the metro area, Point and Plover?
Well, the sheriff is responsible for all. I mean, it's chief law enforcement officer in the county. So, I mean, when something goes on, I'm responsible in regards to what goes on. So, major incidents, we'll be involved. We have great chiefs, for Plover and for the city of Stevens Point, also at UWSP. So, I mean, they will call if there's something they cannot handle. And 99.9% of the time, they're going to be able to handle it. When it's the other 1% or 0.01%, it's going to be all the departments, all the municipal officers, and everybody are going to be together. That's what, again, I felt it very, very strongly when I got elected to deputize each and every one of those departments so that they can assist. Because back, my predecessor did not. He did not deputize those, and so we'd have officers sitting on the line waiting for mutual aid requests over our radio, and if our radio, the communications was busy and they didn't think of it, we could have an officer just cross, a mile down the road, having serious troubles, wrestling around with somebody or needing assistance, and they could not go. So everybody in the municipal officers here in Portage County are deputized and are encouraged, the boundaries for us to come out, and we have MOUs with each department, and it works great because we've utilized it. We're all one. Let's work all together. That's my motto.
Even UWSP officers?
All UWSPs do.
Cool. Yep. 2018, there was a lawsuit filed against this office naming you because of some conversations between inmates and their attorneys were being recorded. How did that happen, and what has changed to prevent that from happening again?
Sure. Well, that happened, actually, I was only in office started in 2012 and ended in 2015, and it's through Securus, a company that actually has our video visitation and our telephone calls. And when the process is when somebody's incarcerated, it says if you have an attorney or a client, give this telephone or put the telephone number, give it to the jail captain, and it would be excluded from recordings. Well, that didn't happen through this process. The people didn't do that, so they actually recorded some telephone calls in regards to attorney clients and gave them to the district attorney. They weren't listened to. And the individual found out and put in a lawsuit, which totally understandable. And the county didn't want to fight it, so they ended up paying the attorney fees, and that was settled. So, what has happened since?
What has happened to prevent it from happening again? What has changed to prevent it?
Well, we put real bold letters on the jail rules that says attorney numbers must be given, to the jail captain. There's a recording. And it was back then too. There was a recording that says all telephone calls are recorded.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we put it in the jail book. We put it in the jail rules. We put a posting outside, and we notified the bar association in regards to, listen, this is the process. It was before we notified you, but we want to make sure that everybody is truly aware of it.
So if I'm an inmate and my lawyer comes in to talk to me, he might remind me, hey, give this number to the jailer.
Correct.
So we can, okay.
Yeah. And the jail staff also tell the attorneys when they come in. Now, it was only telephone calls. So somebody told me, it was when they were visiting. No, it was telephone calls. So it was when you call and they say this. The initial thing is, will you accept a collect call from Sheriff Mike Lukas, and it'll say these telephone calls are all recorded and monitored by the sheriff's office, and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. So that was always on there, and that was just during the telephone calls.
Okay. You've talked about this publicly a little bit. What are your thoughts on the proposed road diet that may be placed on parts of Business 51?
Well, I see so many different proposals. The road diet that was showed to me narrowing it to 2 lanes all the way. I'm very concerned in regards to having our officers running emergency traffic on that. I saw one, and I don't know where the process is even, because it seems like it's kind of in limbo. But the middle section was 2 lane with a turn lane in the middle, and then the 4 lane on the south side business is north side business. I thought that would be ideal because we could reroute I-39 traffic with the traffic count, and we could still have the flow during the business district, or the residential district would be narrowed to the 2 lanes with the turn lane. Narrowing it down from Business 51 all the way on the north side, all the way down to McDill, 2 lanes, I think is not good. That's my personal opinion, and I know some people have called me and said, Sheriff, your opinion doesn't matter, and you're right. My opinion really does not matter, but my opinion for having a building downtown would change.
As the top law enforcement officer in the county, why not make a formal statement to the city council with concerns? Because if there's going to be a snow pileup or an accident that shuts down I-39, your officers, your deputies will more than likely be there, if nothing else, to assist. So you're going to be on the scene. Why have you not yet, or do you plan to, go before the city council and say, this is the alternate route for I-39 and you guys need to maybe talk about this more?
I will.
When?
When there's a proposal for a vote. Here's what I don't like in regards to, I guess, how the whole processes work is, why cause a problem when right now there is no problem? I'm waiting to see what the final outcome is in regards to the road diet, and when they are going to do a vote, I would voice my opinion in regards to the traffic count for I-39, the alternate route, because I was told that's a never happens, and I mean we've changed. We had to reroute I think 5 or 6 times this year. Because of construction wise, but in the winter we always have issues, especially up on the north side, up on I-39. So I mean, I definitely am going to speak to the council once there's a final something coming to vote.
Okay. What are your thoughts? And I know you made this change, so tell me the changes that have been made to emergency management and how it's now under the sheriff's office. How has it gone? Had any surprises that you weren't expecting? Or
yeah, I'm 100% honest. When it first came to me, I did not know much about emergency management. I knew more actually about the ambulances than I did about emergency management. So when emergency management came, I had to really learn a lot through the state, and I had some good people down in the state EOC that I could actually reach out to, because one was a previous sheriff. So I could talk to him in regards to the functions, the resources available, roles and responsibilities that he felt maybe the sheriff should be monitoring, and things like that. So when we hired emergency management, we have emergency manager and then a deputy emergency management. We've got some classy people. I mean, we've got some people that can work with the public. They can work with the businesses. They can get the funding necessary in regards to when we have the flood damages and storm damages, working with, because prior to that, I'll be real honest with you, I think the county lost out, the municipalities lost out, as a whole, getting reimbursed for, from a road getting washed out to, people, the villages and the towns. I can't remember the checks, but I was delivering them in regards to the reimbursements from the state for their, emergency equipment being used, generators, items like that. And then having, our emergency management director calling down to the state to get us capabilities for communications, portable communications, generators, and then through the COVID process, all the PPE, setting that up through getting deliveries for all county employees and for the public, and masks and gowns and things like that. Especially, back in the jail, where we had some of those things, we had to have a lot of gloves and masks and things like that going for the separation and for the testing, and then working with the National Guard, working with all the COVID testing, worked with Health and Human Services, set that up, get all that organized. I mean, there was a lot of logistics that people just think, oh, he's just sitting up in his office. But honestly, I'm going to tell you, they worked very hard and put a lot of effort into regards to making sure that Portage County residents are safe.
How has the press changed during your time in office, and how will you be working with the press moving forward?
Well, 8 years ago, I had 3 outlets that would be in every day. Now, I'll give kudos to Point Plover Metro Wire, because that is the only outlet that comes in and calls me just about daily. We have a news blotter that some people have seen, and the only one that questions my news blotter is Point Plover Metro Wire. And I'm not, it's not a dig to them. It's honestly, it's great, because when you're looking at this, there's some stuff that I cannot believe that unless I put a press release out, I don't get a call on. And in the past, I mean, I would have things, go out on the blotter, and I would have 3 calls instantly saying, "Well, what happened with this? What happened with this?" I don't have that anymore. I mean, I do have the local TV, 7 and 9 do a great job. I mean, but they're not in this community, so it takes them a half hour, 45 minutes. But that local connection and the local paper is it's kind of disheartening to see it gone by the wayside. And the social media and people both relying on somebody's comments and trying to actually combat that is probably one of the hardest things in my job right now, is to actually, we're out there at a scene and we got all these rumors and people are getting all, and we're trying to get the information to the local press, and there's nobody there to get that out. And so you're like, okay, what do we do? And then social media goes on a storm, and you can't stop the comments. You just can't stop. And so, I mean, it's kind of disheartening in regards to how it's transcended over the last 9 years or 8.5 years for me. But yet, I'm working very hard in regards to trying to get those connections, because, somebody says, oh, the Facebook and this and that. If you don't have somebody monitoring that Facebook, it can get out of control in a second. And I have a very hard time having a third party monitoring the sheriff's office content. So I've done it, on my own in regards to that, and put out the emergency messages right away. I've utilized, with Stevens Point with Plover, and through Portage County website, and I think we've not got the rumors, we've not got the downright nasty comments that sit out there that my kids read, that I don't want them to see, that I don't want, that's not the image I want, to have nasty comments sitting out there of swearing and this and that you can't get to quick enough. So.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on concealed carry, red flag laws, and the castle doctrine?
Ooh, I've been all over the red flag. I've been pushing very hard in regards to the red flag law for law enforcement. I don't know if there's a story that I tell, and it's kind of concerning, because once a child, say a child had mental illness and is committed several times during their juvenile, and they should never have a gun. Once they turn 18, those are sealed, and they can actually go out and get a gun. That to me is disheartening, because I've had a parent call and say that their child was going to actually get a gun and kill them. They were concerned, and I couldn't do anything about it. And that's when I started working with some of the legislators and saying, listen, we got to come up with something for law enforcement. That's not a red flag law. To me, is not a individual stating, Sheriff Lukas doesn't like this guy, and he not Sheriff Lukas, Mike Lukas, not a law enforcement, doesn't like this person, so call law enforcement and say you shouldn't have a gun. No, I don't agree with that, because that can be a personal vendetta against somebody. But a law enforcement red flag, I think, immediately stops that purchase of that gun. Could have a hearing, very shortly after to determine it, but I think that is something that's well overdue. In regards to the concealed carry, we run as many concealed carry classes as we can, and we could run a lot more if we had funding. But concealed carry to me is important, because if people want to carry concealed, they darn well better be trained, better understand the castle doctrine, better understand all these statutes that go on in regards to if you pull the trigger, when you can pull the trigger, if you have an escape path, if you do. What's going to happen? I mean, your ramifications when you're carrying that gun. And a lot of people through our concealed carry will come into that course, will listen to all this and say, this is just too much for me. I don't want to carry.
Hmm.
And that's up to them, But for law enforcement, somebody that's taking concealed carry and takes the course, and they're out there to help us, great. The people that just get a concealed carry and don't understand the ramifications of it, I have a problem. So I am, and I have been very much proponent for the classes, at least the education classes. And we go above and beyond here at the Sheriff's Office. We do a 3-hour at the range where they get to actually, it's not a pass-fail, it's just to familiarize yourself with the gun, show them how to load it, unload it, and things like this, because there's a lot of people that just buy a gun and think, I'll just put the magazine in and away we go. And so I really like the way that we do our concealed carry.
Okay, last question. The county currently contracts with Green Bay Crisis, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. Should we take a look at the process we're using, and if so, what should be changed?
Green Bay Crisis, yeah. When we first changed over to Green Bay Crisis, the officer will call and give them the details and see if there'll be a commitment. Now, what we do have also here in the county is a mobile crisis unit that will come out. So the mobile crisis unit, yes, it's not somebody driving around. As I talked to Sheriff Parks up in Marathon County, they have 2 dedicated officers and 2 social workers for their population. And 90% of the time, it's after the fact they're going to check on people. So do I have the resources right now to put 2 plainclothes people? No, I don't. And do we have the calls for that? No, we don't. And so when we have these situations, and we just was reading one in regards to from my lieutenant, the mobile crisis unit will come out, but it could be up to 30 to 45 minutes. I think that's pretty fair nowadays for response time to have a unit come out when the Green Bay Crisis Center is not able to help us. So are we utilizing it enough? No. Do we need to utilize it more? Probably. But then again, the majority of times that we see people in crisis, they've committed a crime, and then they're in my jail facility. So then I have my jail nurse and my social worker in there to evaluate and assist. So, I know that one of the city council asked me about CART a long time ago, and I was actually confused because there's 2 types of CARTs in the state of Wisconsin. There's Child Abduction Response Team and Crisis Assessment Response Team. So, I was looking at the wrong one because she just wanted a CART. And I said, okay, I looked at it, and I dealt with the Sheriff Motz over in Winnebago and got all the information. I'm like, oh, we can't do this because that's way too involved in regards to monitoring. So when this other CART came up, I talked with Sheriff Parks, and it's still very, very, very costly in regards to doing this. Do I think that we can do better in regards to programs and maybe ramping up our mobile crisis response? Yeah, I think we can. But I don't believe that a CART team for Portage County is the best possible avenue we can do.
Okay. Now's your chance. If there's anything I didn't ask or anything else you want to say,
sure.
Here you go.
I think through this interview, I think you can see some major differences in regards to knowledge of the Sheriff's Office, my commitment to Portage County, and also that, I've taken great responsibility in regards to making those connections through the county board, elected officials, citizens, businesses, press, everybody. And I think that those connections and the ability to lead, be respected, takes time. Do we want 2 years of a learning curve or 3 years of a learning curve out of a 4-year term? I'm hitting the ground running day one. I've got some major milestones that I'm looking forward to. I think that the public, I think that the majority of staff and city, county are behind me, and we work well together. Again, I don't make everybody happy, but I do it for the best interest of the citizens and the Sheriff's Office.